this progressive, left-leaning, like radical left.
I think they legitimately think that because aid is in the name and that is inherently a positive, like a good thing, and they just automatically say, oh, that's woke leftist nonsense, and therefore I'm against it. Right-wingers are such marks, dude. It's awesome. They're such suckers.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Wait, Joe on the crazy USAID spending being uncovered? I just never thought I could spend years and years talking about USAID being utilized in incredibly inappropriate ways. Okay, and these guys are just destroying. These guys actively have destroyed that. They've undermined it. It's like saying the CIA is woke. We need to shut it down. Oh my God, can you imagine? Like Joe Rogan starts talking about how the CIA is doing woke and gay in other countries and we have to put an end to it, you know? And then they do. I feel like you can get these guys to be on board with anything as long as you say it's woke and gay.
USAID thing that's going on. You know, Mike Benz has been on that like a pit bull. And I've been following him on X, and he's going to come back on here and kind of explain everything. But he explained it the last time he was here, and I don't think I really grasped it until Elon's 6 wizards. He brought in some young wizards to go in there and go over the books, and they are just finding crazy shit. It's great, and it's so interesting. I was listening to a left-wing podcast today. I like to mix it up. You know, I listen to all kinds of different stuff, and it was like I was listening to a different world. Like, they weren't even talking about all of this corruption and all this obvious buying of influence. Instead, they were talking about aid overseas and how people are going to starve. And like,
it's mind-boggling, and there's also, I have to say, I'm.
Yeah, because the truth is both. No, if he was listening to me, he would have heard me say that USAID both works to do soft power with actually good initiatives like, you know, anti-famine initiatives or, you know, trying to stop the spread of disease. But also simultaneously, they do a whole deal of, I mean, they basically are a part of the State Department in general, not directly under it, but they work in collaboration with the State Department to advance America's agenda. How did they help out in Gaza? Here's a great example. They made a memo in Gaza where they escalated this memo all the way to Anthony Blinken, where they were like, there's a famine happening in Gaza. Anthony Blinken read the memo and said, yeah, no, I'm going to go ahead and say, no, that's not the case. Also, thank you, nasty little for the 50 gifted subs.
Upset at the general pattern of a failure to recognize how right those of us who hypothesized that there was a racket that had overtaken our entire governance structure, we turn out to be absolutely right about this, and no one's going to mention it. That's mind-blowing.
It's very strange that the media is ignoring it, especially the left-wing media. It's just too big of a win for the right, and so they're just ignoring it. And then they're just highlighting the good things that USAID did, which I'm sure it probably did. Probably had to do some good things to like at least justify its existence.
As a cover story, I'm not even sure. Maybe it doesn't change anything. Obviously, this was a mechanism used to funnel money to all sorts of things that we didn't vote on, that don't make sense in light of our constitutional structure. And
This is amazing. They've arrived at like somewhat of a correct conclusion, but from the opposite side. What do they mean by this? I don't understand when they're saying like, oh, the USAID is doing like unconstitutional stuff, that it's an influence peddling operation. And I don't know what they mean when they say this. They can't possibly mean like, you know, USAID is utilized to sometimes destabilize foreign adversaries. Like, there's no way, because I feel like they would like that. These guys are pro-American empire. They think it's like DEI, woke and gay to say that you're not pro-American empire. So I think it's just the mere words that they hear of woke and DEI, and they go, oh, it's a bad thing.
You know, I obviously have concerns like everybody else about where this train takes us, but seeing that structure broken up it's a huge relief.
They gave $27 million to the George Soros Prosecutor Fund. So our own government
What?
is funding this left-wing lunatic who is hiring the most insane prosecutors who are letting people out of jail who commit violent crimes.
And that's exactly how this racket worked.
What? What are they talking? Chat, I'm asking in all sincerity. I have no. What is the George Soros prosecutor fund? I know that conservatives always say like woke DAs are being hired by George Soros. There's like 8 different conspiracies that they tied together. Wait. Yeah. East West Management Institute, an organization partnered with George Soros, Open Society Foundations in the last 15 years. Okay, George, this isn't prosecutors, though. This is American foreign policy. These guys don't even know why. Like, I hate George Soros. These guys don't know why they hate George Soros. This is precisely the point. This is about Ukraine and other foreign efforts that the American State Department has, okay? George Soros, among many other billionaires, was very interested in Ukraine far before Russia invaded Ukraine. They do this by way of opening civil society organizations and NGOs that operate on the ground there, where they create a reasonable amount of support for the inevitable American intervention. I feel like if you were to explain to Joe Rogan like what USAID actually does, like if David Pacman sat him down and explained it to him as a positive, I think Joe Rogan would be on board with it. Many Republicans would be on board with it. They just hear George Soros and they lose their minds, I think. Yeah, look, according to its reports, funding primarily comes from USAID and the U.S. Department of State. Programs include judicial reform, legal aid, and rule of law initiatives in countries like Albania, Armenia, Cambodia, Georgia, as well as civil society training organizations such as in Kyrgyzstan and Uganda. Civil society training and nations. The Anti-Corruption Action Center, another Soros-backed entity, also lists USAID as its largest donor, providing 20% of its funding. The funding has drawn backlash, with critics accusing USAID of acting as a personal piggy bank for Soros, who is known for his role in the collapse of the Eastern Bloc and alleged interference in domestic affairs. He didn't spend his own money to destroy American justice system. He used ours, one social media user commented. Chat doing a 180 in 10 seconds. No, this is American foreign policy. This is in line with the American agenda globally. It's not against the American agenda globally. It's not what they think it is. This article is not talking about how George Soros is actually undermining the American legal institutions or whatever. What? Not about a lot. George Soros also funds a bunch of programs and institutes that are tasked with American domestic affairs. But what they're talking about here is specifically foreign intervention. But once again, this is in line with Americans' agenda. So I don't personally understand why the Trump administration or any number of different conservatives who like American foreign policy and American destabilization would turn around and get upset about this. But let's continue.
Is that the ability to tax the American public and then effectively get us to pay for being propagandized, for being surveilled, that's the game. And I don't know what era we currently live in. Obviously, there's a lot that's confusing about what the Trump administration is up to, but I don't think any reasonable person could be unhappy that we are exiting that era.
I'm going to read off some of the things that this guy, Kanakota the Great, on Twitter listed. And this is off the Jesse Waters show. USAID, $20 million for Iraqi Sesame Street, $2 million for Moroccan pottery classes, $11 million to tell Vietnam to stop burning trash, $27 million to give gift bags to illegals. $27 million. $330 million to help Afghanis grow crops. Like crops. I wonder what those crops are. What's their biggest crop, Brett?
It's going to be the poppy seeds for bagels, I'm thinking.
$200 million on an unused Afghani dam, $250 million on an unused Afghani road. This is wild. I mean,
he accepts all this all of this actually Yeah, I don't think any of the stuff that they're mentioning is a lie. I think they massage it a little bit, like the condoms to Gaza or whatever. But what I don't understand is how he can't comprehend all of these initiatives advancing American interest. That's what I don't understand. Like, why does he think the American, a foreign aid agency under the control of the U.S. State Department is tasked with teaching Afghans how to do crops? And by the way, I doubt that it's poppy seeds. I bet it wasn't poppy seeds. I bet it was literally different crops that they wanted them to grow aside from the poppy seeds. Yeah, they don't need to learn how to grow poppy seeds.
Some of this stuff is really, really crazy.
Well, yes, and, USAID is, of course, riddled through whatever international madness it is that caused us to open our southern border and facilitate an invasion through the Darien Gap. So, seeing that structure laid bare is... It almost feels like it can't be real. Like it can't have been this close to the surface, and yet here we are.
They were spending, is this number correct? I think the number that I read was $600 million every 2 months to ship in illegal.
Assisted firms export 4.6 million in agricultural commodities. Afghanistan Value and Trades, High Value Crops, is a market-oriented project that operates throughout the country with regional offices in Kabul. It promotes sustainable agriculture-led economic growth in line with the Ministry of Agriculture. Yeah. So the American government does stuff like this all the time. It is weird how they talk about USAID like it only does good things. It is truly them shitting in their own bed. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Building on past U.S. government investments in agriculture, USAID's shift towards private sector and agriculture-led economic growth by building the capacity of individual high-value crop-related enterprises to be profitable and competitive. I just learned about USAID and I'm mad as hell. Every idiot Republican. I guess maybe they think like it's helping the Afghan population in any way is woke. Maybe. I don't know. These are all BS. Cover up charges to fund black projects. I mean, I'm inclined to believe that this might not even be a cover for poppy production. For like USAID does do stuff like this, chatters. What are you talking about? They need goodwill to be able to operate. If you want people to flip, if you want people to be subservient when you are dominating their country, you sometimes have to be interested in doing good things. Okay? So they do both. Of course, they do black budget operations, but they also do stuff like this. Afghanistan is the world's largest opium producer, but it's not their most produced crop. 70% of their farmland is used in growing wheat.
Eagles?
Sounds right. I don't know the number offhand, but
what the
well, you have to realize that basically we had a shadow apparatus functioning, and it involves all kinds of things. It involves payoffs to people who didn't deserve them. It involves contracting to entities that were necessary to get the work done. So I don't think we can properly understand what these numbers mean and what they're actually being used for, but it was a racket.
Well, we were always wondering, like, why is our debt so high? Why is the national debt so high? Like, why is our deficit so insane? Well, this is it. I mean, how about the one where they paid $236 billion, like, for chargers? Do you know that they were trying to set up chargers?
You mean car chargers?
Car chargers.
And they only built a couple of them?
Excuse me. $40 billion for electric car ports. 8 ports have been built. You know how crazy that is? $40 billion.
I do.
I'm sorry. That's the beauty of the public-private partnership, baby. What do you mean? That is the beauty of that sweet, sweet public-private partnership that I rail against on a regular basis.
Airports.
But I have to say, as much as this is shocking, I wasn't surprised. I thought that effectively our entire system had been turned into a racket and that we were basically being fed a cover story from it. And it's weird to now have the evidence of this, but I think it was apparent that whatever had taken over our system wasn't interested in the well-being of average people, that it was interested in the power of the state to take people's resources and redistribute them, and that really is what's been going on for most of our adult lives.
And it's also important to note that this progressive, left-leaning, like radical left arm of the government, of the country.
This is what I mean. They're so stupid. I think they legitimately think that because aid is in the name, and that is inherently a positive, like a good thing, like a moral, virtuous thing to do is give aid. They literally do not understand why this institution exists, and they just automatically say, oh, that's woke leftist nonsense, and therefore I'm against it. It's amazing. Right-wingers are such marks, dude. It's awesome. They're such suckers. Virtually every aspect of USAID also operates in the same vein of taking government funds and implementing market strategies so that these people are more susceptible to foreign capital takeovers. Like it's basically opening it up for any sort of intervention at the behest of foreign corporations. It's influence peddling so that America is still seen as the hegemonic superpower. This is all in line with things that I think Joe Rogan would want. And ironically, that's such a cynical take. It is the correct take. I'm sorry. Also, it's a cynical take. What do you think Democrats are saying right now in defense of USAID? They literally are saying what I'm saying. The only difference is I think that's an overall negative thing, even if it's doing good in the short term. Democrats, on the other hand, openly will go, no, it's a good thing. It's good that we're peddling our influence around the world. It's the same principle behind China sending Sinovacs to the Philippines. It's soft power. Do I agree with it just because it's China's doing? No, I agree with it because it's a good thing overall. The same principle goes for USAID. That's it. It's not a cynical take. It's not a cynical take to admit reality. Not all soft power initiatives are bad inherently. Plenty of them are good. USAID is tasked with a lot of good things. Sometimes they also utilize that banner to do evil shit. Sterilization operations on indigenous populations, spying operations, sending in shipments of weapons under USAID contracts in countries that we want to destabilize, or even setting up a social media platform in a country that we want to destabilize with the specific task of trying to feed propaganda, like anti-government propaganda. There's a lot of that USAID does as well. But the overwhelming majority of stuff that USAID does is good, okay? Like maternal health. And yet it is still done for influence peddling. It's soft power. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And the danger of your cynicism is painting all the workers doing good work to help people with the same brush. What? You should simply say that your opinion on it is in view of your opinion on our foreign policy, and that's it. Save so much argument time with someone that doesn't share your interest. Yeah, but it's also silly when people come in here and act like what I'm saying is incorrect when it's actually what their favorite politicians are also saying, because it's just truth. That's it.
Was manufactured.
Yes.
It's all manufactured. It's all manufactured and supported. It's not organic, which is really fascinating about the other side, because the other side, the reaction to it is organic. Like, say what you want about the Trump administration and what you think about him. That was an organic shift where people were like, enough.
Yes, it was an overdue reaction.
Yeah.
The cover story that what we were up to was righting past wrongs was so pernicious and pervasive that it was hard to get our footing to challenge it.
Right.
But it shouldn't really be surprising that movement wasn't organic. Of course it was induced. It was a cover story for theft. And we're going to be waking up to the magnitude of that theft for quite some time.
I think this is going to take years. Chamath said that it's going to be like Iran-Contra on steroids. That's what he said. He said when you get to the bottom of all this, it's going to be insane, because they haven't even got to the Medicaid yet. They haven't even got to the medical stuff.
Oh my God. I think these guys literally don't understand what they're saying. Like, there is a ton of Medicare and Medicaid fraud. It's not the people that are doing it. It's corporations that are doing it. And they don't care about woke. I think these guys are so hyper-focused, so lasered in, so dialed in on like woke and DEI that they don't understand that this private-public partnership is done at the behest of corporations. I mean, they're like accidentally, by way of opposing DEI or woke or whatever, have arrived at a conclusion that I also have. Like, if you're talking about Medicare and Medicaid fraud, it's people like Rick Scott. I don't think he realizes that he's like railing on a lot of these corporations that on its face he would probably defend, considering his right-wing perspective.
There's so much they haven't even tapped into where they think the real motherload of fraud is.
Yes, and I must say that there is also another aspect to this which we have to be careful about, which is that the justifiable anger at discovering what it is that we've been dragged into as a nation is going to make it hard to see where the limits ought to be in terms of upending this stuff. In other words, at the moment, I'm cheering for the wrecking ball.
Right.
Break this stuff up.
Yeah.
Never again. But there are...
What's that, Jamie?
I was reading an article about the spending on the Chargers. They said that they haven't actually, according to this, they haven't actually spent all that money yet.
Well, what do they do with it?
They've spent some of it to make some of those things, but it's just that hasn't been allocated yet. It's a long article going through all the...
Shut up, Jamie. That's not fair, man. Joe said he's not right-wing. Yeah, dude. Yeah. And I'm a blue dog Democrat, you know? That is so nutty. Joe Rogan literally endorsed Donald Trump. Right-wingers are so funny to me. They're always so like weirdly embarrassed by being right-wing. Or they want to be right-wing and openly say the right is awesome and correct on everything while simultaneously running away from the branding. Like you can't endorse Donald Trump for president and then be like, I'm not right-wing at all. I don't know why people are saying that. I know why people are saying that. Because you endorsed Donald Trump. It's not even Donald Trump that made me understand that Joe Rogan was right-wing, however. I've talked about this before. It was actually his endorsement of Ron DeSantis. Ain't nobody that isn't right-wing is endorsing Ronald McDonald DeSantis. Okay? You got to be a real die-on-the-wool, hardline right-winger to be like, yeah, that Ron DeSantis guy, he's great. Okay? Because he sucks. At least Donald Trump is like telegenic. He still has the capacity to capture the attention of like the I'm apolitical Andys who are too stupid to recognize what their politics look like. But nobody's saying I love Ron DeSantis unless they are a right winger.
The spending that's been done, it's on factcheck.org.
Factcheck.org.
Oh, I knew he was going to come after factcheck. Oh, I don't believe that. That's probably also funded by USAID.
Runs that.
I don't know. Some of the chargers have been made. Some of them are on the way to be made. And they've built 61 at 15 stations since mid-August or through mid-August. 14,900 more are currently in some stage of development. But that's where it goes into like where they are, what they have to be done, and who's getting the money from them. It has to be done through a long process from each state.
Yeah, the question is, how can we get a proper accounting? As you point out, who the hell is factcheck.org?
Well, that's the problem with fact-checking organizations. That should really be illegal. Like, I think if you're a...
What? I mean, look, I get annoyed with the actually ass accounts as well. But saying fact-checking should be illegal is crazy.
A fact-checking organization, we should have stringent rules on what influence is being peddled, like who's paying for these fact checkers, who's behind the scenes, what is the it should be very transparent. How did you determine whether or not this was true or false? You know, because there are a lot of things that get said. Like, I don't know if you saw this, but
I mean, I don't know if I completely disagree with Joe Rogan on this issue, because like there are a lot of quote unquote unbiased fact check or like media bias accounts out there. And then you investigate their funding a little bit and it's just the Koch brothers. Like Pointer, the Media Institute, that says I'm a serial misinformer and more of a misinformer than Alex Jones. Like, that is a wholeheartedly unserious institution, right? That's it. Or SAN is another one, Straight Arrow News, literally owned by a right-wing billionaire, okay? That is not a real fact-checking, unbiased fact-checking organization. That is a right-wing billionaire. We looked at it here. We found out about it on this broadcast. Ground News relies on some of these institutions as well, and therefore, you know, who knows how valid their media bias ratings look like. But the difference is, I, unlike Joe Rogan, do not look at random guy like Hitler Groiper 14 posts from Facebook and Twitter and go, yeah, no, this guy's telling the absolute truth. And if someone were to fact check me on that, we should make it illegal for people to disagree with me.
Elizabeth Warren got confronted.
Hey, big bro, I've been a follower and fan for years. I think it is time you banned me. Wait, why? I will not be doing that.
And it's on Twitter this morning. She got confronted about the amount of money that she's received from pharmaceutical drug companies. She said she's never received any money from pharmaceutical drug companies and never received any monies from any PACs. And then, of course, underneath it, Community Notes strikes again. And, of course, she received millions.
Yeah.
She's a liar.
Well, and it's an arms race.
Yeah.
How can pharma cloak the money that it's giving so that there's plausible deniability at the point that Elizabeth Warren is confronted or Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders was hilarious. Only 1.5 billion. Only 1.5 million out of 200 million. Only 1.5.
Yep, that's what I saw
First
as
he tried
well.
to say nothing. Only the hardworking people of this country gave me money.
Well, I don't think the Democrats.
This made me very sad to see. He's completely gone, dude. He even on Joe. He even on Bernard Sanders.
Understand that it's over and that there was a vast infrastructure that made their feeble arguments viable, and that infrastructure is now collapsing. People are far more aware.
Yet another instance of a right-winger looking at something, looking at a piece of information that he's too stupid to comprehend, and then making it everybody else's problem. Like, not understanding that Bernie Sanders did not get donations from any sort of PACs, let alone the pharmaceutical industry. Okay, if you are a janitor at Pfizer and you gave Bernie $30, that is logged in as a small donation, but yet still logged in as a donation coming from someone who is hired by the pharmaceutical industry. If you don't understand how that works, why are you giving commentary on it as though you get how that works? Why are you so negative? I mean, come on, man. This is a video that got 3.6 million views in a day. What am I supposed to do? This is just filled to the brim with misinformation. Should I just be more receptive? Am I not allowed to be upset? The real question is, why are you not upset?
And their lives aren't going to function anymore.
Well, it makes sense now that we're seeing these numbers because, okay, this was what was funding the infrastructure. Now we get it. Because it wasn't, otherwise, it's organic. This is the will of the people. This is how people are moving. It's not. It wasn't that at all. This was all organic. And it was really about control and money. It had nothing to do with helping people, making people better, giving aid to foreign countries. That's all a cloak and dagger show. The reality was it's about money.
Yeah, it's
money and
always
influence.
It's always about power and limited resources.
Yeah.
And this was a new game taking place at a level that was hard to believe, and therefore
New game. USAID, new game. JFK designed it. It's been around as an influence operation for quite some time. It's not new.
many of us couldn't see it.
Did you see how they used software to map out 55,000 different NGOs that were used as a branch of the democratic system?
No, I didn't catch that.
I could send it to you. I think I sent it to you, Jamie, right? We went over it on the podcast before. It's so nutty that this was all kind of like hidden until they started using software to try to like figure out like and map out where all the influence goes. And the crazy thing about the NGOs, and this is one of the things that Mike Benz has gone like so deep into, it's essentially like they contribute to the Democratic Party, the government pays them. It's like it's all this like weird sort of.
What benefit would the Democrats get from putting forth a transgender play in Guatemala? Like, please. The only benefit for American foreign policy later down the line is if we want to say why we are invading Guatemala, let's say, and part of that is because we want to liberate the transgender Guatemalan population. Okay? That's it. These guys unironically hear the propaganda. Like, I'll give you Afghanistan as the greatest example. Okay? Donald Trump negotiated the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Joe Biden actually followed through on it and pulled out of Afghanistan. The media was up in arms. They freaked out. They were like, why are we leaving Afghanistan? How dare we leave Afghanistan? Look at all the women in Afghanistan that we're leaving behind. They're going to be dominated by the Taliban. Okay? That is the liberal version of manufacturing consent for why we must continue occupying Afghanistan. Okay? These guys hear that liberal version, the liberal propagandizing of why we must permanently occupy Afghanistan, and think, oh, this is woke nonsense. This is woke nonsense that the Democratic Party is involved with. They don't understand that it is just a part of the consent manufacturing machine. Okay? It is still done at the behest of a permanent military occupation. It is not beneficial to the Democrats. It is not beneficial to just the Republicans. It is beneficial to American foreign policy. Okay? For Republicans, they don't really need this kind of propaganda. Okay? They don't need it at all. For Republicans, they just go, there's Muslims there. We them. And Republicans are like, hell yeah, brother. They did 9/11. Let's go kill them. For liberals, the squishy libs need more motivation to be on board with the woke occupation of Afghanistan. So for them, you say, well, there's a lot of issues with, women's reproductive health in Afghanistan. And there's truth to it. There are a lot of issues with that. So they'll take advantage of real opportunities to help people in an effort to also still justify a military occupation. Okay? They'll say, oh, we're doing women's education in Afghanistan. And it's true, they are doing it. And it is truly something that is necessary to do in Afghanistan. But they use that as a way to propagandize why we are continuously occupying militarily a foreign country. These dumbasses don't even realize that they're actively undermining American empire when they advocate against USAID. So I'm just kicking back and observing what is happening. Okay, that's it. I'm not speaking on this. I'm just kicking back and observing. Okay? But it is kind of funny that they legitimately think that this is being done at the behest of woke and simultaneously being done to not like engage in some sort of whitewashing of American empire and its actions in the global South, but instead it's to help the Democratic Party somehow. Yeah, not everything deserves a reaction. Just take a seat back and relax. Enjoy the show. Xi Jinping.
Like circular money transfer thing that's out in the open.
No, it's a positive feedback. The whole idea is power is utilized to free resources that garner more power, and it is the exact inverse of the system that we are supposed to have.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Where we're headed, that's a harder question.
Where we're headed is we're going to own Gaza.
Somehow.
This is it. So Fractal Technology maps previously hidden connections between 55,000 liberal NGOs, revealing how tax dollars allegedly flowed through major institutions like Vanguard and Morgan Stanley to groups like the Chinese Progressive Association. This breakthrough tracking system can now monitor every dollar going to every NGO, exposing intricate funding webs that traditional tech couldn't detect. So, example, Black Voters Matter Fund's $4 million distribution network was invisible until quantum mapping revealed dozens of subsidiary organizations. The unprecedented mapping reveals a previously hidden web of financial relationships. And that's what it's really all about. And
yes.
One unintentional thing that I never really thought we'd get here is that these guys literally think like Vanguard is woke. Like they're not anti-Vanguard or anti-BlackRock because these are parasitic forces of capital. But instead, They're anti those things because they think those institutions are doing woke. And at this stage, like, I don't know. I don't know how to combat that. You know what I mean? And I don't even know if we should. Like, okay, yeah, you're right. It's woke, man. You're right. We should abolish private capital. We should abolish financial institutions because they're too woke. I agree. Yeah. They're woke and Chinese. You know who's the wokest of them all and the gayest and the most Chinese? Like more Chinese than the Chinese Communist Party. Profit healthcare. For-profit healthcare insurance industries. Guys, that's the method. And the CIA. The CIA is so woke and so gay, they're trans. Okay? Which is the highest stage of being woke and gay. Have you guys thought about this? Do you know how woke the CIA is? They're all trans. All of them. Which is why we should shutter the operation. You ain't lying, bro. That's the angle. Yeah, I think we could do like a proletarian revolution if we were to... if we were to get these guys on board. The only thing they're trained to get mad at is woke and gay. CIA gay and FB bi. I mean, they are kind of doing that. Yeah, look at this. CIA offers a buyout to entire workforce as a part of Trump makeover. I think we actively fried the brains of like tens of millions of Americans where they are so malleable. What you're saying is not too different from leftist leaders using xenophobic language to push out colonialism and establish popular democracy. Yeah, I'm serious. The CIA is so gay and so woke. You know who's not gay or woke? Trans people, like actual trans people. You know who the real trans people are? The CIA agents. We should be focusing on that instead. Yeah, I saw this and it was amazing. One of the myths, Bronze Age pervert says, one of the myths the left dearly holds on to is that the USA and CIA knocked off third world communist regimes during Cold War instead of what it actually did, which was to set them up and prop them up. We're reaching the terminal stage of anti-communism where it has now negated itself. The CIA will now be abolished under the very same ideologies that helped deploy to defeat communism. The CIA controls both parties in Congress. Every patriot should be reading Destroying America, the CIA's quest to control the government. Schumer and infamous Liz Cheney are just two of the Democratic and Republican CIA officers who became members of Congress in violation of the Constitution. CIA officers used police covers when they moved barricades aside and ushered protesters over to the Capitol. CIA officers were in the crowd, perpetrating violence and stirring up anger among the protesters. Ray is a CIA officer. He illegally used an official cover as FBI director. And because the CIA could not get rid of Trump with a phony riot, they tried to kill him in July 2024. Official documents state that the CIA officers are detailed by the CIA to be Secret Service agents. We all know they allowed crooks to open fire on Trump. The CIA spent decades building up its control before stealing the 2020 election. Cheney is gone, but the CIA still controls both parties in Congress. To repeat, every patriot should be reading Destroying America, the CIA's quest to control the government. Patriot Victory 2024. Get the facts. The Patriots are in control. The problem is Trump consolidating power, and now there's less oversight and transparency going forward. They're trying to go back to how the CIA operated in the 60s. I mean, that's what I think as well. But also, this is pretty funny.
The problem is, sometimes when I see like a list of preposterous scientific projects that have gotten big grants, I read it and I think, they all sound preposterous, but I don't know. Some of these things are likely to have had a good explanation, and it just is not apparent in the soundbite. And some of them are every bit as preposterous as they.
NATO is also woke and gay. I just want to point that out. It's the wokest and gayest institution. Operation Gladio, more like Operation Gadio. Okay. Yeah. Nothing more woke than propping up terror cells in an effort to destabilize our European allies because you wanted to you wanted to make sure that there's more gay stuff happening in Italy and many other places. Yeah, NATO, more like Gato. Shut it down.
They seem. And so I can't look at a map like that and say what I would expect if the system was healthy. So I'm cautious about it. I don't think the system was healthy. I think the system was a racket from one end to the other. And I've been saying that we've been living.
Why do you use gay as an insult? Because I'm not woke. Because I'm based.
In the era of malignant governance where there's basically no element of this you couldn't turn off and make us better. But we have to be suspicious also of our understanding of how a properly functioning system would graph in something like that, so that we don't overrun the train station when we get there.